Thanks. Great. Welcome back. I think this is your third time here now, I think,
Um,
in the
they
Astro
said,
Lounge.
yeah, it's third time.
That's great. So yeah, I guess we can do the same as last time. People just unmute their mics and ask questions. Everyone can use the text to voice channel if you don't have a mic, and someone else will answer your question. Or if Rick, if you want to see the text to voice channel as well, you can read questions from there. But yeah, thank you. Your most recent video was amazing, by the way. I commented on
Oh,
that. Yeah.
wait till you hear the second one. I just had another experience last night.
Oh, really? Well, I guess I'm sure someone else will ask the question. Or, I mean, did you go back to the school?
Yes, I did, but that's all I can say.
Okay, I'll wait for the video.
Yep.
But yeah, if anyone wants to start asking questions,
So, I
just ask.
introduce myself.
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I'm Rick with Astro Club, and I'm on YouTube. Uh, I've been astral projecting all my life, starting when I was just a baby. I astral projected throughout my childhood. Of course, I kept it to myself because when I was little, my parents threatened to send me to a psychologist, and my friends said I was weird. Now, you probably were right about that one, but it's something that I had to keep to myself. Started as I got into college, finding more about it, and of course, Robert Monroe's famous book, Journeys Out of the Body. Finally, I was able to put a name to this weird thing that I was doing. Um, Bringing it up to the present, about 2.5 years ago, I went on Reddit and I found the astral projection subreddit. And I thought, oh, I wonder if anybody has any questions. I figured I'd get maybe 5 or 10 questions and that'd be the end of it. A couple months later, I'd answered thousands of questions. So I figured that there must be some interest. So a few months later, I started Astral Club on YouTube, and we've grown to over 7,300 subscribers, and it's great. It's a great community. Everybody's very supportive, and we're all learning together. So I'm here to help any way I can, get some more folks on the astral plane, and help us all grow and advance. And anything I can do, any questions I can answer, I'll be glad to help out.
Question.
Okay.
Is there any topics you think we shouldn't ask about, like regarding maybe aliens or something, just to be
Uh,
safe?
you can ask whatever you like. If I don't know the answer, I'll just tell you I don't know the answer. But there's no subject, as far as I know, that's off. It's off the table. So ask what you like.
Okay.
Can I ask?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No.
Okay, I'll just ask one question and wait for others to ask. So regarding like others in the astral plane, couldn't like the experience you talked about with the gray aliens, can others on the astral plane scan for your location or information from your mind?
Well, new people, when they astral project, are like broken radio. They broadcast all kinds of signals wherever they go. You can't. It's hard to shut them off. But once you have experience, you learn to shield your thoughts, so you don't open up to just about anybody. You only open up to someone you trust or you want to communicate with. So by the time I met up with the gray aliens, I wasn't broadcasting all over the place because I don't trust them. So I was pretty closed down. I told them what I wanted to tell them, and that was about all.
Thank you. That was valuable. I think I'll be practicing that.
Okay.
Does anyone have a question before I ask mine? Because they're quite complicated.
I
No.
have a follow-up.
Sure.
Alien.
Good.
Do you? How can you
I've lost you. Hello?
Whoever was talking, I think you had a bad connection. If you can just type your question in text to voice, and I'll read it out for you. Yeah, I think she's going to
I
type that out now. Oh yeah, someone else. Go ahead.
I have a question. Are you able to project whenever you want, wherever you want? Like, are you specifically able to do it? Like you personally?
When I decide to project, I'm successful about 33% of the time on average. I tend to have more luck closer to the full moon, and my worst luck is in the new moon area. I know that because I've kept track over the years. On average, if I say I want to astral project tonight, I can do it about 33% of the time. So I can't just do it whenever I want. I don't always succeed, but I succeed about a third of the time. And as far as
Are
going
you
where I want, well, you know, I can't go wherever I want because there are certain places that for some reason I can't get there from here, kind of thing. And that changes too. And I think there's a certain thing that has to do with as the planes move past one another, like you can get there from here, but then tomorrow you can't. I don't pretend to understand all the physics of it, but I can certainly I have a good amount of luck because a lot of it has to do with your ability to concentrate and fixate 100% of your will and your thought process on exactly where you want to go. Many new people have problems because their thoughts are all over the place. So they think they want to go here, but then a second later they're thinking about something else, and then they head off in another direction. A lot of that has to do with just experience. And so, I mean, I've had a lot of luck in going where I want to go. Sometimes I end up somewhere else and I just go for it and see what that experience is about. I've had luck traveling in time and space and all and possible realities, possible futures, some few projections to the past. So, I've had a decent amount of success. But it's an inexact science. I don't have a machine that I can just program in the coordinates and you can be 100% certain that you're going to get where you want to go. I haven't quite gotten to that point yet.
I have a
Are you
question.
competent? Oh, go ahead.
So I've been able to astral project since I was a kid, but I can only do it like one certain way, which is just like falling asleep, and I'm not able to do it like on purpose. Do you have any tips on how I would be able to change that?
Well, I I do it the same way. I mean, typically what I do is I like to multitask. I'll go to sleep and I'll project. I usually project within the first 20 minutes to 30 minutes. I mean, it's just easier
Yeah,
that way.
same.
I don't have, I mean, it's, yeah, I could probably do it with meditation, whatever, but I have a busy life. So I just think of it as multitasking. So, I mean, that's how I astral project. It's just the easiest way to do it for me. Once you train yourself in that process, because what you're doing is you're allowing the conscious mind, the subconscious mind to meet, and the conscious mind to say, hey, we're going to project now. And that basic light sleep process is ideal for that. If you really wanted to work at doing it through meditation, you could. It would require a lot of practice and a lot of time, which I personally don't have. And I have success doing this method. Sounds like you do too. So, I mean, what's wrong with that? We got to sleep anyway, right? So that's my method too. So, you know.
I have questions to ask. I'm gonna just read them because I have a notepad.
Okay.
So, if you dissociate or AP while on a hallucinogen drug, how can you know if it's really AP or a hallucination?
Well, that's a great question. I've never taken hallucinogenic drugs because, quite frankly, there was a couple of reasons. When I was in college, and obviously they were around, but I was number one afraid that they would mess up my ability to astral project. Secondly, at that stage of the game, I still was a little insecure in this belief system of this astral projection, despite the fact I'd done it hundreds and hundreds of times. And the last thing I wanted people to say to me at that point in time was, "Oh, you're just tripping on LSD. That's why you're having these experiences." So I can't answer the question because I don't have that experience. And I don't answer questions that I can't talk about from experience. You'd have to talk to somebody who astral projects and has taken hallucinogens.
Alright,
That's not
so
me.
that's good. Okay, it's fine. I had a second one. I don't know if it's understandable, but it's been like 2 years. Maybe that's not a lot, but it's been 2 years that I've been like actively trying to AP, but with no success. Does it mean that like there's something wrong with my chakras or something unbalanced or like I'm not meant to or something? I don't know.
Everybody progresses at different speeds. It's there are some folks who will go through a class or have listened to a couple of my videos and they start astral projecting. Others, it takes weeks, months, and years. I believe everyone can do it. I believe, if you can learn about it and keep it, on your mind, do some of the basic practices, dispel your fears. I believe that when you least expect it, it'll start happening. But just because you haven't done it for 2 years doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you haven't achieved it as of yet. But believe me, if you keep at it, you will eventually get there. Now, one little exercise that I used to do when I was a kid to help me increase my abilities to astral project, and maybe you could try something like this if you haven't already. I used to say, as I was falling asleep, I used to say to myself, and it's very important to picture this too as you're saying the words, because you're trying to communicate to your subconscious. Your conscious mind knows what you want, but you need the cooperation of your subconscious, and it does better with pictures than it does with words. So I would say this over and over again as I would fall asleep. Tonight, as I fall asleep, my mind will come awake. I will choose to leave my body and feel that, picture what that's like. And I will go where I wish to go, do whatever I wish to do. When I return, I'll have full memory of everything that occurred. And when you're picturing this, try to feel in your stomach. When you astral project, especially when you're at the point where you're rolling out of your body, for instance, there's a feeling of that. If you've ever fallen any distance and survived it, you feel this weird nausea in your stomach. That is the process of falling. That is associated with astral projection. So if you can imagine that as you're saying those words and that picture, you'll help to start communicating. And I know when I started using that as a child, the amount of projections that I did dramatically increased. And you could try something like that. It's fairly easy to do. And who knows, it might help get you over that threshold.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we have a question from Camus. Hi, Rick. What
Hi.
what technique do you use for relocation? Do you just think about a place and suddenly you are there, or do you do it differently?
Well, there's a couple different ways. If you've got a line of sight, you can certainly walk or run there super fast. Generally, I'll fly if I have a line of sight and it's kind of like a treetop level, and I'll fly there. Now, if it's a much further destination, or if it's a very large time jump, then what'll generally happen is I'll lose consciousness for a split second or what have you, and then find myself in that new location or that new time. And I think it's because it's not that I lose consciousness, it's just that imagine seeing a million television screens flashing before your eyes all at once. Your conscious mind couldn't deal with it. It would probably just black out, which is, I think, what happens when you're doing that long distance type of situation. Now, for instance, when I first went to the moon when I was a kid, I'd look up and I'd see the moon, line of sight, bam, and I'd take off like a rocket and hit the moon. But if I wanted to go somewhere that I couldn't see, then what you have to do is get a firm grasp of where you want to go or when you want to go in your mind, and then 100% focus your will and know that there is no chance that you will not arrive when and where you will it. And whenever I say will, in any question or talking about astral projection, I mean will with all capital letters. It's very important in our lives. Our minds are all over the place. We're multitasking. We're thinking of 19 different things. We're watching the TV. Meanwhile, while we're watching the TV, we're playing on our phone. And then we're making some notes over here, or we're talking to this guy all at once, all these things. And what that does is it weakens your will. It weakens your ability to focus. That's why one exercise I talk about for people who are suffering from that is when you meditate, try to see how long you can hold the image of a candle, a white candle lit in blackness. How long can you hold just that image in your consciousness before other thoughts start intruding? I think when you first start doing that, especially if you haven't meditated before, you'll find that almost immediately you'll start thinking about all kinds of other things. But the longer you practice, the better you get at fixing your will. And that's the main thing about getting where you want to go in the astral. I mean, people astral project and they end up all over the place. You know, they start with bopping up against the ceiling, not knowing how to get down, to being prematurely retracted or ended up all over the place trying to just get somewhere, and they're having a problem because the physical body is controlled. You know, your brain decides, okay, this is where you want to go. The signals are sent through your nerves. They get your muscles and your bones working, and you go to that place. But you don't have all that apparatus in the astral. All you have is your will, and it has to be perfectly focused. And, you know, it's like being a toddler. You got to practice that. Toddlers don't start walking and running in the Olympics immediately. They got to practice it. And it's the same thing in the astral. But will is the central focus about getting where you want to go. I hope that answered your question.
I have a question about like techniques and stuff because I've practiced techniques, I've tried it. Should I I've never been really successful from a direct technique, so should I try to just set my intent at every night and hopefully one day it happens?
Sure. I mean, it's worth a try. If there is such a thing as you try too hard, and what's happening is your subconscious is now resenting you because it's no longer fun. Now you're making it work. So it can actively fight against you. I've advised people in the past who have said, "Oh, Rick, I'm spending hours a day. I've been doing this for weeks. It's all I think about." And they just can't make it happen. And then I say, take off some time, you know, or just please back off. They're usually like type A personalities where they're just going full bore. And then sometimes it'll just happen when you least expect it, because then all of a sudden your subconscious or feels that, oh, okay, the pressure's off. Well, let's go ahead and do this and see how it feels. So that's always worth experimenting. I mean, don't be afraid to try different techniques. There is no one way to astral project. I mean, and we're all different people. So some people will float up to the ceiling. That's the way they want to do it. Others will roll out. I used to do all of that. Nowadays, I'll just pop out, and I'll generally either be outside of my body here, or I'll be at my parents' house because that's where I started. So there's this weird homing beacon that many times I'll project, and I'll be at my parents' house, and then from there I have to go and do whatever I do. So you dispel all this stuff. When you're new, it's all about all the different procedures, and I got to go through the vibrational phase, and then I got to do this, and then I got to do this. But as you get practice, you'll get better. But try different things. Read some different non-fear-based books, watch some videos, and try some different things. And if you're too intense about it, back off for a couple of weeks and try something different. I've got videos with some offbeat techniques, like for instance, there's been some historical figures who were starving or who were thirsty, and they were stranded somewhere in the desert, and they reported astral projections because what happened was the subconscious understood things like being thirsty and not being able to drink, and understood things like starving and not being able to find food. So I've done experiments with, denying yourself a certain amount of food at night or water. I mean, don't get ridiculous. Don't starve yourself to death. We don't want to get anorexic over this. But know that if you have a glass of water, you'll have some favorite food waiting for you in the kitchen. So as you fall asleep, hey, if you get me out of my body, we can go to that kitchen, and there's the food and there's the water. And I'll make sure that when we get back to the body, you'll be rewarded. And things like that'll work sometimes. Even after you've done all this, cerebral techniques and they don't work for you. And then all of a sudden something stupid like that, and it worked. So try different things.
I feel like for me, when I first started researching this stuff, I researched a lot. I tried so many different techniques, and recently, in the past year, I've just slowed it down and just thought about it every month, maybe. Not very much. So I don't know if I should try it more or just forget about it for a while, for a year or two.
It's up to you. I mean, whatever feels right to you. I can't tell you, the best way to go about doing it. But just don't be surprised if you just give up and then one night you find yourself outside of your body. You're like, oh, look at this. It reminds me of there's such a phenomena as couples who can't have kids, and they're all stressed about it, and they keep on trying. They can't have a kid. And then they just give up and say, oh, well, we're not going to have kids, so just relax. Who cares? And then they get pregnant. Because somehow, somewhere in the body, it felt the pressure go away. And so now it happens. And in astral projection, sometimes that's what happens. Because your subconscious mind, it can feel put upon. And so sometimes, take a break. It might help. And don't be surprised if something like that happens. The main thing is when it does happen, that you're educated, that you're not dead, you're not dying. You don't have to be fearful about the experience. And that you want to get as far away from your physical body as quickly as possible. I have a little thing. It's called, get out and get the hell out, which is don't hang around. So many people have wasted experiences because they sat there staring at their body and then they got sucked back in again. So if you do find yourself out in the future, get out, get as far away from your body as you can to lengthen the experience and avoid being pulled back in again. And good luck, who knows?
Mm-hmm. I remember you told me those same words on a Reddit comment once.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and I ended up trying it, but I wasn't able to get away that much.
Well, I mean, it can, there can be a very powerful gravitational pull at times. And once again, that's when your focused will can help you get away. But even there's been some times when even I've struggled and failed. So it's not always easy, but it's important to
Mhm.
know that that's what you have to do. Because if you don't get far away, you're going to get pulled back in again. And
I
that's
feel like my issue is probably expecting too much because I'm always expecting everything every second. Like I'm always thinking about doing it in a way, and I'm always ready for it. But maybe I should try and not be ready for it. But I don't know how to do that yet. So
hey, it's worth a try.
I just gotta find a way to get rid of my expectation. Don't know how yet.
Well, don't worry about trying to get rid of your expectation because that's an active thing you're trying to do now. Seems to me you need to just chill a little bit and not worry about any of that thinking through things. Just try to pull back and allow whatever's going to happen and don't worry about trying. Just allow it to just flow.
How do you convince your subconscious that it can happen? Because, like, let's say earlier when you were talking about setting the intention and all that, the techniques, um, I was like, oh yeah, this is really interesting. But then I felt that my mind was saying, oh, but it won't work because you can't do it anyway. Like, I don't know how to convince the subconscious that it's possible.
Well, the subconscious is see, convincing is a very conscious mind exercise. It's a logical exercise. The subconscious mind doesn't function like that. I mean, most of us at some time or other have kind of drifted off to sleep, almost, and then you get jarred back to wakefulness, and you're thinking,
Glass.
pink camels. You're like, where did that come from? See, the subconscious mind it communicates in a very symbolic way. When I said make sure you're picturing this process, also picture it as a positive, happy experience, because those are basic emotions. Your subconscious mind does understand basic emotion. It understands symbology, and it can take a while to get it on board. And the fear it can interfere with that. And the only way to deal with that is you've got to train your conscious mind. And eventually, if the conscious mind becomes confident, then it'll filter down an emotion into the subconscious. So it's really just it's a process like that. But you have to remember that you're not going to convince your subconscious logically of anything. It's going to have to understand just that this is going to be a positive experience, and make sure you try to convey that with the feeling of positivity, the feeling of joy, the feeling of happiness, and it can understand those things.
Yeah, like I know it's gonna be positive, but the problem is more that I know it's gonna be positive, and I know that like everything you're saying is right, but then it's saying like, oh, don't expect it to work with you though, because you suck or something like that.
That's
So I
not
don't.
like your conscious mind kind of doubting you. It's that there's always that little voice inside of you somewhere that's saying, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that." But when you listen, when you read books by Robert Monroe, and you watch the videos, you see others doing it. And believe me, there's nothing I've got that you don't have. I've got more experience and more training, but that's it. There's nothing, in my body or spirit that you don't have. So there's no reason that you and everyone else listening can't do the same thing. It's just a matter of just getting to that point where it starts occurring. And once it starts occurring, your conscious mind and your subconscious will become more and more comfortable with the experience. It takes a little bit of practice. It takes some experience to really convince conscious and subconscious mind that this is a good experience. Just like a small child, it's fearful sometimes the first time you take it to a pool or whatever, but once it gets some experience, then it becomes more and more comfortable. So it's a process. It's a process, definitely. But you can do it. I know you can.
Okay, we have a question from Zandarev. How often do you astral project?
Well, I do it a little bit more often now since I started Astro Club, because I got to come up with episodes. So before I had Astro Club, I might do it a couple of times every couple of weeks, just because sometimes I just want to sleep. And when you astral project, you're using a certain amount of energy because you're conscious. Whereas when you're resting in a subconscious way, you're actually regenerating to an extent. Generally, in busy periods, I'll do it a few times a week. In less busy periods, maybe once a week. As I said, it changes with the moon. When it gets closer to the full moon, I'll do it more often. When the moon starts waning, I tend to do it less often. So it kind of varies.
Do you feel like the pressure of making weekly videos ever gets in the way of your projections? Not to give you any ideas.
Yeah, I don't really think of it as pressure. I mean, I
Yeah.
enjoy doing it. I wouldn't do Astro Club if I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I just feel I know there's like if you try to force it too much, it doesn't usually happen, and
Right,
Yeah.
right. I guess what I do is I guess I feel a little bit more pressure sometimes. Before I had the channel, I would just enjoy flying through the night sky, and I still do. But that doesn't make for an interesting video. So sometimes you've got to be more fixated on I've got to go somewhere or have some sort of an experience that will help people or that will be of interest in some way, shape, or form. Of course, there's other situations where I'm just kind of drawn into them, like you mentioned. Well, like it was mentioned this video I made where I was pulled into this astral guide school. That's not something that I willed. I left my body and I had a whole nother idea, but then I got pulled. Out quite nothing I could stop. I got pulled into this situation, and so you have to be open to a different type of experience. Basically, I just trust that it seems like every week, either somebody asks a question or something happens that puts me onto a course that ends up in some sort of a projection that is of interest to people. And many times I'll get comments like, "I was just thinking about this, and then you made this video." It's still a lot of fun, and I feel humbled and I feel privileged to be able to have these experiences first of all, and then to be able to share them with others. So I mean, look, it's fun. That's all there is to it. It's fun. If it wasn't fun, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. And related to that, there's a question from Kai. Hi, Rick. I've been listening to your videos all day today. In regards to your most recent video, do you think you're being prepared for something?
Well, I hope so. I mean, typically, if I'm being enrolled into a particular school, I would hope that there is some goal in mind. And I don't know whether maybe it's my job to report back to everyone and help everyone understand what's going on and perhaps learn from that experience, or maybe I'm being prepared for something else down the line. it's impossible to know. But for right now, I'm just honored to be pulled into this situation. I think it's just because I can astral project pretty reliably. I'm sure there are tons of people who are a lot more qualified to be in this situation than I am, but I just happen to be able to astral project and remember the experience and have a venue to get the information out. I think all those things together probably explain why it's me there rather than somebody who's probably a lot more deserving.
I think that's one of the first things I would want to do if I get a full-fledged experience. Try to find a school of some sort. 'Cause,
Okay.
like, what's stopping you from like getting like secret technique information or like that you don't already know? Okay, do you
Uh,
unlock any secret knowledge going there?
well, I mean, I have generally I try to share everything that I can. I mean, there's a couple of things that I've been asked not to share, and the one time it was a demon, and I said, no, I'm going to share it anyway. But in but when I did travel to the Akashic records, I was given a lot of information. I shared most of it, but I was asked not to share this particular bit, or else I wouldn't be allowed back again. I guess they felt they had to threaten me, so I didn't share that. But I try to share as much as I possibly can because I believe that information is of help to people, and so I try to share as much as possible.
A quick follow-up would be is have you learned anything that helped you project better?
I'm
Oh,
sorry. There was some interference there.
Um, okay.
Yeah, don't
Have
worry. Someone
you
else was talking. I've muted them.
have you learned any techniques that you're able to apply to get better projections?
It's like somebody
Can
escaped.
someone kick the guy?
Please ban him.
Maybe they should
Yeah, please
Sorry.
ban him. Yeah, would be
try to
cool.
grow up a little
Who's
bit.
that? Sorry.
He's been muted.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. So that's I don't know. Some people. Okay. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question? It was kind of hard to understand.
Yeah. Did you learn any like technique from a school you're able to apply to project more frequently or more willingly, if that makes sense?
Well, so far this particular school um, has been more towards guiding it's an astral guide school. So the first lesson involved forgiveness. It wasn't about astral projection. It was about it's part of a training process for new guides. And so I've just been through I've been through two lessons now, but I've only talked about the one. So it's not geared to give you secrets about astral projection. It's a whole different school. So there's nothing that I can help you with that other than just my own experiences, which I'm sharing.
Um, can you download entire like knowledge bases from the Ashiki records, like chemistry or like medicine or any other sort of thing like that?
You know, theoretically, yes, but there's a problem. Let me explain. There was one time when I wanted to ask what the meaning of life was, and to understand the universe, and I expected some sort of neat little package that I could understand. But what happened was there was this enormous information download. And while I was in my astral body, it all made sense. But then as soon as I went back to my physical body, it started just leaking away. It just went away. I mean, I compare it to pouring the Pacific Ocean into a shot glass. That's what happened.
I see.
I had the Pacific Ocean, but my physical brain, you know, these physical brains of ours, they're great and everything, but they're still relatively primitive, and they're just you know how we learn. It takes us a long period of time. We do it one piece after another. We have
Uh,
super computers that can grab huge amounts of information, but
Wait,
it's
couldn't they teach you the solution to that challenge or whatever? Like, don't they have a? They definitely do have a solution to that. I mean, they, quote unquote, they. But yeah.
I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, they. You mean?
Oh, like the Ashiki Records, it has. I'm not sure that's how you pronounce it, but it has a solution to that problem, right? It
Well,
has a solution to everything.
the Akashic Records has, infinite, I think, amount of information. And I shared in an episode some of the things that I learned. And it was interesting because one of them was involved the Kennedy assassination. And I was able to see a scene where this thing was being plotted in this New Orleans rundown motel. And I mentioned the name of an individual who was there. And then like a couple months later, there is a guy who has a YouTube channel, and he used to be a mafia captain, and he had heard from other top mafia bosses about the planning of Kennedy's assassination, and he mentioned the name Marcello, who was a New Orleans mafia guy, and that's the name that I named in that video a few months before. So I had that little piece of information. There was a couple of other things too. But when you're talking about huge amounts of medical information, let's say, first of all, my daughter is a PA, but I am not a physician. So you could hand me an advanced book in hematology. That doesn't mean I could just grab it all, because there's a whole set of information that you have to learn ahead of time so that any of that makes sense. And even then, it takes years. I mean, how long does it take for a doctor to get a medical degree? They got to go through years of schooling. You got to go through residency. But unfortunately, the physical brain, it just isn't geared for that type of huge information dump. Now, what I have found is that periodically I'll get information that just kind of leaks out of nowhere, and it gives me a little foreshadowing of something's going to be happening in the near future. And more often than not, it actually does happen. But I don't have control over it. It's like it's buried somewhere in my subconscious or unconscious mind. And, it's kind of like a computer where you've got RAM, you've got your random access memory, and then maybe you've got this huge hard drive, and there's some section of it that's partitioned off, and you can't really access it easily, but there's information there, and every now and again it might creep out somewhere, but it's nothing that you can access just because you want to access it. So if you can't go to the Akashic Records, to my knowledge, and suddenly become a genius surgeon. If you can figure that out, let me know how that's done.
Thank you. I'll mule over what you're saying. It's making sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Like you said about already having grasp of, let's say, being a doctor. What if it was something really simple, like a basic computer part or something? Let's say you already understand the complicated science behind something, and you just want a little extra step. Could you do that if you already have the former knowledge?
I think that would be possible. Sure. I mean, I like, as long as you've got that knowledge and there's a little piece that you're missing. I mean, there are plenty of Tesla, for instance. They would have dreams, they would have inspiration where suddenly an answer to a problem would come to them, and it would come out of nowhere. And so suddenly it was a solution, and they may have gotten that, I think personally, through the astral in some way. But you've got to have that expertise to begin with, to have that extra piece. I mean, somebody asked me a year ago, would there be, a vaccine? I said yes. They said, well, okay, could you come back here and tell us how to make it? How would that, even if I could get that information, do you realize how complex it is to put together one of these mRNA vaccines? I'd have to study for years just to be able to understand what it is I was looking at. Perhaps someone like Dr. Fauci or some specialist might be able to make some heads or tails of something like that, but it certainly wouldn't be me. I wasted my time getting business degrees.
What if you like dilate time to learn that knowledge for like 1 year, and then it comes out as 1 second in the real world, and then you learn to be a doctor or something?
Well, I mean, let me tell you my experiences. As you travel further into the possible future, and let me always say possible, because the futures aren't fixed. There's many planes out there. There's many possible futures. You have, I have, our race has free will. We decide which future we want to make real. That being said, the further you go into those possible futures, the longer you can stay there, and the larger your ability to actually interact. For instance, a year from now, I could spend a couple of minutes there and I'm a ghost. I can't accomplish much of anything. Same thing with 10 years from now. But if I go 100 years from now, I could stay there longer. I'm still a ghost, but I could stay there longer. 15,000 years in the future, now I could stay there a lot longer, and I actually can interact with physical people. There's just something about that process of going further into those possible futures that allow you to do that. And I had that experience some 15,000 years in the future, where I became part of a primitive tribe of people that were somewhere around Indiana in what used to be the United States. And I was there for a couple of years, and I was able to interact with them. And I'll write about that sometime in the future.
So let's say you travel to the far future, and then you learn an instrument because you're able to stay there for a long time. Could you transfer that instrument knowledge to the real world, like after you wake up?
I wouldn't see why not.
We have a couple of questions. I'm just going to combine them both because they're similar. So from Voodoo Black and Tubular, have you been to the pyramids in the astral? And have you ever been to Antarctica? Others have claimed that they were blocked from going by entities. Is there anything going on in Antarctica?
Well, you know what? Everybody always asks about the pyramids. And, it's kind of cool, but I've never really gone there. I don't have any reason not to. I just never have. As far as Antarctica, I have flown along the coast numerous times because I enjoy the sensation there. Number one, it's quiet. When you're astral projecting around here, there's always this annoying background noise. That's people's thoughts, and you have to block it. And it's just something that you get used to doing. It's like let's say you work in a noisy office. Eventually, you have to learn how to concentrate, but that background noise is always there. I like the coast of Antarctica for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's just beautiful. Number two, it's quiet because you don't have leaky humans leaking their thoughts all over the place. And you've got all these negative ions that are generated by the water and the ice there falling into the water, and it's very invigorating. However, I've never left the coast, so I can't get into anything about the individual inland. I mean, for me, it's like a vacation, and I stay along the coast. So I can't add any more to. I never explored the inside.
I have a question for you, Rick, if that's okay.
Please.
I know we have a lot of questions in the comments, though.
It's okay, whatever.
So my question is this. So I was wondering, have you ever just have you ever visited a full-blown thought realm of yours? For example, have you decided to visit a fictional world such as like Hogwarts or something of that sense? And if you have, what sort of process went into visiting that space?
I never have, and I've read about plenty of people who have, and I think some of it goes um, back to when I was a kid, wanting to make sure that proved to people that I wasn't imagining this. So I've never tried to create or go to any. I've read about other people who have. I have enough interesting places I feel to go without having to create, Hogwarts or anything else. I'm not saying people shouldn't do that. If that's what they want to do, go ahead. But that's not something that I've done. Um, just because, like I said, I didn't want people to think that I was making this up. That goes back to my childhood.
I see. Thank you.
We have a question from Pelia. How do we shield what we put out? Following up on the alien question, my other question was about staying safe. I left my body one night and was immediately greeted with a deep hello unexpectedly. No idea who or what it was, and I heard it only when my head was out. Since then, I've been frightened about my body being safe while I'm out on the astral. This has prevented further OBE experiences when previously I was getting out more regularly. I'm still new
Sure.
though. Thanks so much.
No, that's fine. And that's one of the most common fears in astral projection. I mean, first of all, I've been out now thousands of times and I'm fine. It's just me inside here. Okay. And you're perfectly safe as long there's no everyone can astral project safely as long as you're not in a health situation that's precarious. If you're on the verge of passing, maybe you shouldn't astral project. But as long as you're healthy, you're not depressed. I would never advise people to project when you're depressed, because that can be very, very, very bad. But you're perfectly safe. The thing is about when you first leave your body, there's this band that's all around you, especially imagine a radio just being turned with all these different stations and all this different input is running around out there, and all it is a distraction. I ignore it and go off on my way and accomplish what I want to accomplish. If it's suggestible in that state, if you look at a corner long enough and imagine you see a shadow, you'll see one. And as far as any voices or anything else you might hear, it's very common. I've heard it. I ignore it and go off and do my thing. And I've never had a problem. So it's just important that you don't allow yourself to be distracted. You're perfectly safe. Like I said, I've done it thousands of times. Plenty of other people have done it many, many times, and we're all here. Yeah, I mean, there are some people who believe in the phenomena of demonic possession. Even if you believe in that, by all accounts, it's a very, very rare phenomena. And in my investigations, it has nothing in common with astral projection. And that no one who's ever claimed to actually be possessed has ever recounted being an astral projector. So who knows what that's all about? But it has nothing to do with astral projection. Thousands and thousands of people do it every night, and they get back to their bodies and they're just fine. So just try to ignore that stuff. Your mission is to get as far away from your physical body as possible, quickly as possible, and to accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish. And don't worry about all that excess. I mean, when I've left my body, I've heard songs, I've heard on radio. It's I believe that the physical body, and especially the lower astral, you're crossing over some sort of an EM type of band, and you're tuning into stuff like a radio station is, and so there's just a lot of this stuff floating around. As far as controlling your what you emit and what have you, once again, it's a matter of being fixed in your will and not allowing yourself to be besieged by 19 different thoughts and fears. I mean, if you've decided what you want to accomplish, don't think about anything else. Just dwell on that and project yourself using your will to where you want to go and what you want to accomplish. And don't allow yourself to be distracted by all of that extraneous stuff. But know that it's a very common situation. It's a very common problem. And it's just a shame because a lot of people end up wasting a perfectly good astral projection because they heard some weird thing or other and then they got freaked out. But like I said, I've done it thousands of times and I'm here talking to you and I'm telling you, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, great answer.
Hey, I have a
Yeah,
question.
go on.
First, my English is not very good, but I'll try to ask. Do you think that chakras development or some kind of energy work or some kind of custom meditations have a relation with the astral project?
Well, I think it can definitely help you. I mean, meditation helps you to fix your will to become focused, which we've talked about is extremely necessary when you're trying to astral project and when you're trying to get where you want to go. So that's extremely important. As far as the chakras, I don't know if everyone knows what that is. There's a series of energy centers. Sometimes they're associated with colors. It starts from your forehead, goes all the way down to your root chakra, which is where your genitals are. And there's going back thousands of years. In India, there's a belief system that these energy centers should be functioning properly. If they're not, then they're entryways for disease and what have you. And that perhaps if you've got blockages, perhaps it'll interfere with your ability to astral project. I don't really know anything more about that situation than I just explained to you. It wouldn't hurt while you're meditating to picture those chakras, functioning and flowing, well and healthy. I would think that if you believe in them, that would help the process. Certainly, it wouldn't hurt. So I would do that while I was meditating.
Thank you.
Sure.
We have a question from Scott. As someone with recent troubles projecting, can the choices you make in day-to-day life affect your ability to project? I'm more conscious of my choices in life, trying to eat healthier, meditate, and work a job that is simple rather than becoming rich. But lately I've been stressed out at work because of my morals, and I haven't been projecting as much.
Well, I mean, it's a fact that if we're emotional, if we're in emotional turmoil, then certainly it affects everything we do. Then, doesn't it? It affects your work life. It affects your personal life, and sure, it'll affect your ability to astral project too, because you need to be at peace with yourself in order to properly astral project. If you're in an emotional turmoil of any sort, if you're feeling any sort of strong emotions, it can interfere with your ability to astral project. I mentioned a moment ago about depression. I could talk about that real quickly. The reason I say don't project when you're depressed, it's not that you can't project. It is possible. But what happens is, you attract in the physical what you give off. If you give off a depressed vibe, you'll tend to attract other people in a similar situation. In the astral, it just happens a lot more quickly. And you don't want to be in a situation because that type of feeling will put you in an area in the astral, usually the lower astral, where there's others, and there's an area that's just black with deep depression. So you don't want to do that. But any type of turmoil in your life or in your mind, it's going to interfere with your ability to sleep, and it's certainly going to interfere with your ability to astral project. So really, if you want to astral project, you've got to resolve the turmoil. And that you do that however you do it. If it's a job, get another one. If you can't get another job, then try to make peace with the job that you have, and try to find a way to to maybe blow off steam with some other sorts of activities that will help you to release some of these emotions that you're dealing with. Yeah, you'll have a problem astral projecting if you're in turmoil, because there'll just be too much going on inside too. Because your subconscious, it needs to feel that everything's fine. So okay, everything seems to be fine. Everything's peaceful. So yeah, we'll let the astral body go explore for a bit. But if it feels threatened, and emotional turmoil can be interpreted broadly as a threat, it would be much more shy about letting the astral body take a walk somewhere. You need to be at peace in order to make that happen. So, good luck. Try to find some way to make peace with what's going on in your work life.
Great answer. Thank you.
Is,
Yeah, go on.
is there a kind of some kind of meditation I need? I mean, custom meditation, or just you meditate in somehow you like or something?
Well, I've got a couple. One I did not too long ago in Astral Club, a guided meditation that can help people. And really, all it is it takes you through a progressive relaxation, starting with your toes, working your way all the way up to the top of your head, and then it has the calming suggestions about leaving your body and things like that. We talked about doing meditations. Allowing yourself to be centered and to concentrate on, say, a candle in the dark, to allow yourself to become quiet and to be able to control all these extraneous thoughts. All that can certainly be of help. If you're an accomplished meditator, you probably could use that to really help to begin to astral project. But that's a fairly advanced situation. Typically, I think the average person astral projecting, will use meditation to help calm that inner turmoil and to help to control all their extraneous thoughts, and to become very clear on what they want to accomplish and how they wish to accomplish it. But if you want to check out astral projection, there's a couple guided meditations on there, and there's plenty on YouTube too. You put in astral guided meditation, you'll probably come up with a couple hundred different videos. You can always try those out too if you want to try them out. It's usually a variation on the theme. They're relaxing you, and then they're giving you suggestions to leave your body. Sometimes they'll say, okay, your astral body is starting to detach from your toes, and then they'll work it progressively up. You can try all that kind of stuff and see if it helps.
Do you think that there's like a hidden turmoil that someone can have? Because personally, I'm always happy. I'm never really sad, and I'm not depressed or anything, but I still have issue. Is there like a possibility I have something hidden in my subconscious that I have no clue about?
Well, how are your dreams? Do you have
Fun lucid dreams. Usually I get a lot of lucid dreams. Have fun, do what I want.
Well, if you have
Usually.
lucid dreams, you can use that to astral project. You know that, right?
That's how I was able to do it for the first time a long time ago. But I've never been able to, because every time I try to think about projecting from a lucid dream, I wake up usually.
Okay.
Even after grounding myself.
Yeah, that is a threat. But what I find works best first of all, lucid dreams are fun. I'll just do that sometimes. Say, I don't want to astral project. I'll just have a lucid dream, because lucid dreams are cool because you control everything. You're the master of the entire universe. It's your reality. Talking about Hogwarts, for instance. The astral, that's a whole nother reality that's kind of outside you. But have you ever tried jumping off of a cliff in your dream, or jumping off of a high building, and then wishing to leave your body? Because there's something about the feeling of falling that helps to encourage astral projection.
I actually did something exactly like that. What I did is I finished the storyline of my dream I was interested in. Then I was
Okay.
like, I want to project. So I dived straight into the floor, made my surroundings turn into like me jumping off of a skyscraper. I hit the floor, got launched out.
Okay. Yeah, there's something about the whole falling thing that can, So I recommend that the people have trouble, but they can lucid dream to try that. I mean, it doesn't work all the time, but it does work some of the time for some people. I mean, I've used it myself at times, so it does work, especially for folks who are having trouble doing it any other way.
Do you ever feel like going on like a vacation and seeing if you could stay in the astral as long as possible and like just gather as much knowledge as you can and just have like a vacation from the real world for a while?
Well, I have had some experiences that I've detailed in some of my beginning videos where I decided I wanted to travel not thousands of years nor hundreds of years, but billions. And when I did, I got to around 500 million years the first time, and I was kind of stuck there for a while, for a number of days. It may have been as long as a week. And because I was depressed, I was unable to get back. So I was kind of stuck there for that period of time. So I don't know if it was a vacation, because it wasn't very pleasant. But then I decided finally, when I got out of my depression, to continue moving forward until the Earth was engulfed by the sun. So you can do that. You can experience that time. It's very lonely, though, and that's something you have to make peace with. When you travel deep in space or what have you, you have to be someone who's really comfortable being completely alone. And when you're doing far distant, far time traveling, it's just you. There's no other human anywhere. Or if you're in space, you're light years away from the nearest human, and it can be very, very lonely.
But if you're just visiting like other beings, like just for a long time, like chatting, learning about stuff, because I
It's
feel like it would be cool to go away for a while and just gather as much knowledge as possible
it
and
is
learn about
it is
everything.
interesting. It is. Well, you know, you can train yourself to remember your experiences. Now, before they were talking about, downloading knowledge of the universe or some gigantic piece of information. We're talking about here is experiences, not some sort of complex compendium of infinite knowledge. That with experience you can retain that knowledge. I trained myself starting as a child. Back then, I used to come back. I filled up hordes of notebooks full of all this information, and it helped me to get good at remembering. Um, as far as being with aliens, it's kind of cool, but you get lonely for humans real quick. I know it doesn't. You watch Star Trek and you think, oh, it'll be fine because they're kind of like us. They just have a different color skin and pointed ears. It's not like that, though. It's really cool being with other humans because we have commonalities. When you're with other beings, you don't share that commonality. There's communication, but you don't feel like you belong. And it's just it makes you even more lonely, if that makes sense, than if you're by yourself, because you're so disconnected. It's, you know what, we spend all our time fighting here on this planet. But let me tell you, when you're a billion years down the line and there is no human left, you would take any human. I'd take a North Korean. I'd take, you know, the worst person on the planet here, because at least we'd be human, and we could share common experiences and feel like we have something in common with one another. Um, it's a very odd thing, I know, and I have had experiences, and I've detailed some of them, but it's, you can get lonely, and I'm the kind of person who's, I mean, I think most astral projectors, especially those that are really good at it, they tend to be more loners than not, at least in my experience. So, you know, we're better prepared for these experiences than people who are more gregarious. Um, but you know, it's amazing how quickly you can get lonely for Earth, your time frame, and other humans. So I don't know. Try it sometime, and you let me know what you think.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be cool though to go to a school and they teach you like techniques like how to time dilate anywhere in the astral, or for example. I feel like it'd be cool to like learn techniques and develop your skills
Well,
if
sure. I mean,
there's anything like that out there.
when you want to travel into the future, it's a matter of will. Once again, it's a matter of will. You have to will and yourself to that place in that time. Um, there's really no more secret than that. I know it sounds simple, but it is simple once you've got the experience and the will. You have to believe that you're going to go to the year 3000, and then you have to use the energy and the will to project yourself there, and realize that there is no chance that you won't get there. You have to be 100% convinced of that, and then you have to project yourself there. There's no secret incantation or anything else to it than that. And I know it sounds, if we could communicate telepathically, I could give you so much more information as to how to do this. Unfortunately, physical English is a very clumsy language, as are all languages here on Earth. So we do the best we can to get the point across, but the rest of it has to come from your experience. And you know, there's really no replacement for that, and you don't need a school to do it. I didn't need it. It's just a matter of practice and trying it out and having the courage to take a chance and see what happens.
Thank you.
Sure.
Did you ever meet someone in like in the astral world, and when you come back to the physical world, you check with him, and he said yes, I meet you, like, and we do that and that.
Yes, twice. One time was a girlfriend that I had in college, and we met in an Eckankar class. I don't encourage that particular thing, but they were talking about astral projection, and I was very much interested in that. And I met her there, and she was also a very experienced astral projector. We were able to project twice together and then come back and discuss the experience. Another time happened when I was about 15, and I projected, and I was just wandering around the basic neighborhood when I ran into another living astral projector, and it's very rare to run into someone who was living as a body. And you know, we got along really great, and I suggested that we meet at this coffee shop, you know, the next day at a certain time. And I went there and I waited, and then she came in, and she was about 45 years old. And we talked for a little bit, and we had a cup of coffee. But you know, we had shared this experience, but obviously it wasn't going to work because in the physical world, 45-year-old married woman and a 15-year-old kid is just not going to work. But those were the two times that I was able to do that. She was experienced, very experienced astral projector as well. Now, I tried this with my daughter because at her request, when she was about 9 or 10, she said, "Oh, could you take me out of my body?" And this is before she began to astral project, which happened years later. And I took her out of her body, and we had this little adventure. And the next morning, when she woke up, all she remembered was flying with me over the neighborhood trees. And it was this vague dream-like memory. And that's all she remembered. It's because you need to astral project for yourself so that you're conscious when you do it. If you're not consciously projecting yourself, you're not in conscious control. It's kind of like leading a sleepwalker around by the hand. And then you put them back to bed again. And then the next morning you say, "Hey, how about that adventure we had?" And they're like, "I remember some fuzzy, but I don't know." I mean, it's because they weren't fully conscious. Yeah, you were dragging them along, and I drug her astral body along, but she was in essence a sleepwalker, so it didn't work. If you want to do something like this, you gotta find someone who's an accomplished astral projector, and it helps if you're very close. Your physical bodies are very close. It's a lot easier to kind of make it happen that way, because that way you don't have to sit there and meet and then do something. If you're close by, it's a lot easier to kind of line up and leave together without having to go somewhere first. But it's a fairly rare situation, and it's fairly rare to find living people on the astral plane anyway. We're fairly rare out there, which is one of the reasons why I have Astral Club, because I want to get more folks, who have bodies out there. We're still kind of a curiosity out there, in this astral guide school I'm a part of. When they found out there was a living person in the class, I was kind of like a weird, rare zoo animal because it's just, there's not a lot of us out there. And the ones that are usually sleepwalking through the experience, or they're attending an astral school, but they're unconscious. And the whole idea in those schools is it's kind of like a mass situation. They give lectures and they hope that something seeks in. But basically, because I've come awake in a couple of these classes, and I've realized, oh, hey, this is what's going on. But you look around you, it looks like a bunch of zombies, kind of like the average high school class today. The teacher's up there talking away, and all the kids are on their phones, or they're ignoring what's going on. So it's fairly rare to actually be able to find another conscious, experienced person to share that with. But I've had a couple experiences.
Can you hear me all right, Rick?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, perfect. So what you were just talking about, I actually wanted to ask, because one of the burning questions in this Discord lately has been meeting up. Everybody wants to meet each other in the astral. And I know you mentioned you did it with your daughter, but I always assumed that was because I guess you guys have a really close relationship, DNA, blood, that kind of stuff. Have you ever had any interactions with other living people that you didn't necessarily have a close connection to? And if so, how could we translate that maybe to like a large scale thing, like a lot of experienced people meeting? Like, what would be your tips or recommendations on something like that?
Well, I just mentioned those two experiences I had, the one with a girlfriend and the other meeting that 45-year-old woman that was in the neighborhood. These meetups, they're more complex than people think. It's kind of like herding cats. That's the difficulty that you're talking about here. Because you would need very experienced people. They need to be at the right time zone, at the right energy level, in the right place. I mean, we could both be in the same place and in the same time. But if I'm on a higher level or a lower level of the astral than you are, I might see you, but you couldn't see me, or vice versa. Or maybe we wouldn't see each other because we're on different planes. See, in the physical, you say, look, I will meet you at this Starbucks at this time. So you've got the actual location, you've got the time. In the physical plane here, we all are on the same plane. In the astral, especially if you're not extremely experienced, it's very easy to find yourself drifting from one plane to another based on your emotional and your energy level. So trying to get a whole bunch of people to one place, one time, and at the same plane and energy level can be difficult. I mean, when you astral project, sometimes I'll astral project myself in July in the eastern United States, and there'll be snow outside. I slipped in time. It happens. The astral isn't as fixed in time as it is as we are here in the physical. It's very easy to slip in time. Even when you don't mean to. And the matter of fact, the more you time travel, the more unstuck you can become. That's one of the side effects of time travel. In case anybody wonders, if there's any side effects in the astral. You start time traveling, you're going to start becoming more unstuck. So keep that in mind. So, I mean, it's not impossible, but like I said, it's like herding cats. It's a little bit more difficult than perhaps people who are newer think it is. I mean, I've had thousands of projections, and I related to you the 2 times that I was able to meet up with other physical astral projectors. And my girlfriend was very close by, her physical body was, and this neighborhood woman, she was just a few streets away. And, that's all I've been able to accomplish. I mean, it's worth a try. But it's difficult. It definitely is.
Yeah, it seems really difficult. But thank you. That was really insightful. But it is possible, especially if you do have a large group of experienced people. Instead of meeting in a physical location, do you think a sigil to a private area would work better? Because I know there's the other Reddit where they had like an island, and they all kind of met. I don't know if you know anything about that, but would that make the process easier if you have a group of experienced people, do you think? Like something to focus in on and travel to as opposed to a real location?
I don't know. I just be speculating. I mean, I don't like talking about things definitively that I haven't done myself.
Sure.
So I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rick. Thanks for trying.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Rick, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
We had a guest on here. I think it was about a week ago. Bob Peterson.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that his diet affected his ability to astral project.
Okay.
So he said something like when he was lighter in weight, when he ate cleaner, he had better chances of actually getting out. Do you have any experience with that you can comment on?
Well, I know you don't want to eat a steak right before you go to bed and you want to astral project. I mean, I can tell you that because you'll have all this digestion going on, and it's going to be very disturbing because you're not going to be in a quiescent place in order to astral project. There's been a lot of, I know there are people who swear by various diets, and I mean, from my standpoint, I've never been able to, and I used to keep track of all this. I've never been able to really pinpoint any particular benefit in a particular diet or food group, as long as it wasn't a big meal before I wanted to astral project. You don't want to be very hungry generally, and you don't want to be very full generally. Um, and that's been my experience. Um, Also, I think listen, I have a lot of respect for Bob, but I also think that that belief is a very powerful incentive too.
Sure.
I mean, if you believe this is helping you astral project, it will. It actually
Sure.
will. Um, so I can't say it's wrong because it is right in a way. And but if you ask me, oh Rick, if I'm not a vegetarian or if I'm not a vegan, does that mean I can't ask to project? I would say, gee, I hope not, because I enjoy an occasional steak or whatever.
Sure.
So like I said before, as long as it's not something that's upsetting your stomach or you feel heavy and weighed down,
Mhm.
it shouldn't be a huge problem. Moderation, like everything in life, I think moderation is the key.
Okay.
As long as you don't go too crazy one way or another, I think it'll be fine. Now, I mean, going back in history, you've got gurus or what have you, who who've starved themselves, and they say that it helps them to project. I bet you it might, because if they do what I suggested a while back, which is, hey, maybe you can project your body to where there's food. You might be able to talk your subconscious into saying, yeah, let's do this.
Okay.
And so that might very well work. Of course, if you starve yourself on to the point of physical death, yeah, it'll be easier to astral project. But that's not something I want anybody saying, Rick recommended you starve yourself up to physical death, because I didn't say that. But I mean, that's my viewpoint on it. But it's look. I mean, there are folks out there who swear by their vegan diet. Hey, if it works for them, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was kind of more leaning towards just eating cleaner and just not overeating. Um, not like a specific diet or anything like that, but
Mhm.
like for myself personally, I've been kind of eating less and healthier, and it definitely affects my energy.
Okay,
So I'm kind of thinking
sure.
that may help me
I mean, I know you want
to,
to be
to
healthy. I mean, if
right.
you're sick, it's really hard to astral project when you're not feeling well. I can tell you that. If you're suffering from the flu, trying to astral project is a real problem,
Mm,
because you're just so miserable, and it's just you don't have the energy to get out of bed, much less let your astral body go wandering around the cosmos. But moderation, just being smart about what it is you do. It's certainly not gonna. I mean, you want to have a body that's functioning properly, certainly, and
mhm.
you want to have a good sense of well-being, because that's necessary as well. So certainly your diet, is a part of that. But like I said, just from my standpoint, don't go to extremes.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not
All right. Thank you.
sure.
Okay, we have a question from D20. Rick, why does light hurt when I lower my vibrations? I had a short astral projection where I was slowly vibrating out of my body, and I felt like some entities were healing my feet/legs with light. But the moment I fell in fear, that the light started hurting me instead. You mentioned archangels have a similar effect on you before.
Well, if someone was projecting light energy to try to heal, it's necessary that you be at a certain vibrational level to accept that. Otherwise, it could be interpreted as pain, um, especially if you're still close to your physical body. Um, and as far as archangels are concerned, they're like fire. They're just they're this enormous power, and the light, it it burns good. I don't know how to it it burns you, but it's weird. It's almost like it's almost like being a masochist. I'm not a masochist, but I would imagine that a masochist, he enjoys pain. He gets pleasure from pain. The presence of an archangel and the light that they give off, it's like that. It scorches you in like the weirdest good way you can imagine. But it's the kind of thing, it's like looking at the sun. And I wouldn't recommend you do it for too long because you'll get blasted. As far as that healing energy is concerned, I think perhaps the fear lowered the vibrations that she was experiencing or this person was experiencing. And so that energy was a higher vibrating energy and it was interpreted in an unpleasant way. Did that answer the question?
Great, yeah, I think you did. Another question from Miss. Have you ever astral projected to Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, or other famous enlightened people?
No. And I don't know. I don't really have a good reason why. I don't know. I guess part of me is if they were real, then who do I think I am to project myself to them? If they weren't real, then I'd be wasting my time. And I don't know. It just seems to me that if we're dealing with real individuals who are really that enlightened, that it would just be obnoxious of me to foist myself onto them. And I just don't feel that would be the right thing to do. I don't know. That's just my basic explanation, I guess.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
thank you. Okay, another question from Jojo. This is quite upvoted question. I have a question. My friend is a fundamentalist Christian, and he believes that astral projection is the works of demons pulling one's soul out of the body. I know that you've touched a bit on this previously, but I'd like to ask, is there anyone one can do to conclusively prove that astral projection is a natural phenomenon? It seems to me that once you start believing demons are everywhere, capable of highly intelligent feats of deception and shapeshifting, then it becomes intellectually impossible to ever prove that astral projection is a natural phenomenon because the person in question becomes so fixated in their worldview.
Yeah. An open mind is necessary. And there's an old saying that those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. Astral projection has been reported going back as far as recorded history. I mean, the ancient Egyptians talk about in the Book of the Dead, the Ka wandering about through the astrals. I mean, every civilization going back for thousands of years has dream walkers. I mean, so this is something that's been going on throughout human history. This isn't something that Robert Monroe invented. This isn't something I or anybody else has invented. It's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. And there's even a story in the Bible where St. Paul was on an island and he talked about, first of all, their way of talking about themselves in a literary way. They talked about themselves in a third person. It was the literary convention of the time. Plus, it meant that you weren't obsessed with yourself. And he said that there was a man that I was acquainted with who, as he slept at night, he wandered throughout the heavens and had all these experiences, and then he returned in the morning. So he was describing an astral projection, St. Paul, but all he had to say about it was he didn't see any practical use to it. He was a very practical man. If he had thought it was evil, he would have said it was. He certainly was the type of individual. I was raised as a Christian that he wouldn't have been shy about calling something evil. He just didn't see a practical use for it. Unfortunately, some, religions, they've gone to an extreme, and fear happens to be, the way that they instill obedience. And it's unfortunate, but if this is what, these people believe, and they're adamant, there's really nothing you can do. For instance, Astro Club isn't designed to convert people. I have no desire to convert anyone. If you are interested in learning to astral project and what's possible with astral projection, I am sharing my experiences. If you think that it's evil and demonic and I'm going to go to hell and everybody else is, okay, then you go do you and I'll just do my thing. I'm not going to try to force. I mean, they try to force their beliefs on others. That's part of their religion. The last thing I want to do is the same thing. It's we all have free will, and I firmly believe that this is a natural ability that humans have had for as long as we've been around. We've neglected it because as we went into cities and became very, very busy, we started forgetting about our roots and our ability levels, and we became very, very tied up in the physical and worried about accumulating physical wealth. And if whatever it is you're doing doesn't accumulate physical wealth, then it's useless. And I can tell you, I mean, there's always somebody every now and again who chimes in and wants to know, can I get rich doing this? Because if I can't, why should I bother? I mean, if that is your mindset too, then you shouldn't bother, okay? Because if you're so tied up in the physical, then worry about the physical. Don't try to astral project. And with religious folks, if their mind is open and they ask respectful questions, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Generally, I don't really get a lot of questions from very, very religious people because they don't go on the channel. So, it's there. The information is there. If they become curious, hey, they can go and decide what they want to believe in. If they want to stay in their current religious belief system, there's nothing I can do about it.
Okay, great.
I had it.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, go on.
Okay, I had a question. I wrote it down. Okay. So, are there any plants that can help meditating or APing? Because we live in the Western world, and I know that in Oriental world and tradition, there's a lot of plant and medicine and all that, but here we don't have a lot of access to that knowledge, I think.
Over the years, I've tried there's a couple different plants out there that people experiment with. And every time I tried, it turned my stomach. And I couldn't astral project because my stomach was so upset. And I mean, if you go online, I'll say astral projection plants. They'll come up with a number of different things, and you can experiment with them. I'm not an expert in that. Like I said, I tried it and it upset my stomach. I guess I have a sensitive stomach, so it didn't really do me any favors. So, I mean, if you want to try that stuff, like I said, just Google it, and you'll come up with all kinds of ideas that you can give it a shot. Anything that'll help you calm down and may help. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I don't like to give advice about stuff that I don't know anything about. So it's I am by no means an expert. So I mean, there's probably there's books on these types of topics and with various herbal remedies and like I said, you can Google it and there'll be all kinds of information there. There's people who know a lot more about that than I do. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about something that I really don't know about. So I really can't help you too much with this one. Sorry.
A question from Void. As ridiculous as it sounds, do you believe it's possible to transfer items from the astral plane into the physical?
No. I mean, if it's on the astral, it's astral. It's the physical's physical. I mean, they're two different planes, and luckily, it's that way. Otherwise, things could get very confusing. I don't know. I years ago, I heard there was some guru who was able to manifest this ash that he said he grabbed from the astral, but then I think he was discovered to be some sort of fraud. So I don't. I mean, I maybe some guru somewhere thinks he can do it. I can tell you, I couldn't do it. So I've got no information on that. Believe me, I would love to bring back things from the astral, and I have tried, but it's there's no use. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. A question from Dog. How do you distinguish your spirit guides from beings who might be trying to trick you?
Well, like attracts like, and that's very. It's true here in the physical, and it's true in the astral. If you are someone who is honest and you radiate that honesty and you act in a way that is honest and true on the physical, you will tend to attract other people like that. And you'll repel people who are not like that. In the astral, it happens much faster. If you are traveling in the astral and you're pure in spirit and you're positive, joyous, and you're helpful and of a positive orientation, you attract other entities like that to you. It's like magnets coming together. Those entities that are tricksters or who are negative in orientation, they're repelled by that energy. I mean, they run because it repels them. They don't want to be around it any more than we hear in the physical. I mean, we all know probably somebody who just walks around with a black cloud around them, and just being near them is a draining experience. And you're just saying, "Oh, I wish that person would go away." On the astral, it's much more instant. It's much more acute. There's if you are someone, like I said, who is radiating that positivity, if there's anything negative, it runs because it's actually unpleasant for them to be around people like that. It's physically it hurts them. It's not something they don't want to be there. And once you're experienced, you can recognize someone immediately just by their thoughts. You can hide your thoughts here in the physical, but there in the astral, it's broadcast. And if they're closed down, you're wondering why you're completely closed down. I mean, I noticed that newer folks are always very concerned about what they're going to run into. And I always recommend people, as soon as you leave your body, you get out of your house, fly into the sky, pick a point in the sky and fly there. As soon as you do that, you raise your vibrational level and you're out of the lower astral. And so you're out of the reach of whatever riffraff might be hanging around in the lower astral. But I've run into a couple of unpleasant characters over the years, and I left or I asked them to leave, and that's all there was to it.
Is it true that everyone has his own spirit guide, and if it's true or not, how can you call them like when you're in the astral world?
Well, I believe that I don't know I can't speak if everyone has one. There seem to be people who do, and there seem to be other folks who, if they do, they're scarce, or they can't find them, or they're somewhere else. I don't know. It does puzzle me. I mean, there are people who will pass over, and they've got folks waiting there for them. And many times it might be a guide in the form of someone else. Other times they pass over and there's nothing there for them. A lot of it has to do with free will. If you want a guide, you have to ask for one, and you have to be willing to listen. Nothing is foisted on you from what I can see. So I wouldn't automatically assume, even though I know movies and there's this basic belief system that everyone's got this guardian angel hanging around. I haven't noticed that. So for me, I think you want to ask, and ask and you shall receive kind of thing. At least that's my experience. I might be wrong. I don't know. I mean, it's possible that someone's got a guide, but they're just at a higher vibrational level, and maybe they're helping this guy the best way they can, but because of the disparity in energy levels, that he can't be seen, or maybe for this guy's best, purposes, it's best that the guide makes himself a little unavailable so he doesn't interfere. There's a lot involved in the situation. I know that very comforting painting that people have seen where there's this beautiful woman with wings looking after the children walking across the bridge. I mean, I wish that's the way it was. I just haven't really observed that per se on any kind of consistent basis. So I would say ask, and through your free will, you might be able to attract an entity who will co-evolve with you and assist you.
Yes, and when you ask, you need to. I read that you need to call from your heart, not with your mouth or your word. Is it true?
Well, certainly. You have to be full. You have to really, that it has to come from deep down, certainly. It's not just a matter of, hey, get your butt over here. I mean, you really, obviously you have to be sincere. And you have to be serious about the situation. You have to put energy into it, and it has to be, it's for the noblest purpose too. Because if you start asking, hey, I want a guide so he can give me lottery numbers. If you get someone, it's not going to be someone you want, okay? Because the kind of quality of guide that you want isn't going to be someone who even knows what a lottery number is, much less the kind that's going to throw it your way. But be careful what you ask for, you may get it. Let me put it to you that way.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, a question from Elusive. During my first experience a couple of weeks ago, my heartbeat was extremely loud and fast in my ears after I exited my body, and it was kind of hard to breathe right after the experience when I entered back into my physical body. Out of curiosity, what do you think happened here?
Well, that is something that happens quite often. Let me just say, first of all, I just want to make sure that as long as you're perfectly healthy, you don't have any kind of heart problems, you're fine. If you've got some sort of heart problems and you see a cardiologist or something, then don't listen to what I'm going to say next. But assuming you're of normal health, the vibrational changes can be interpreted by the body as it goes into some sort of panic mode, because it feels the change, and so it interprets it as some sort of problem with the homeostasis. Once you start doing it over and over, the body becomes used to it, just like anything else. If you've ever taken some medication sometime, the first time you take it, it really has a major effect, but there's side effects, but as you take it over and over again, the side effects become less. So, your body will become used to that process, and your heart will, and your mind will learn that, your autonomic system will learn that this is a fine practice. there's no reason to go to the extremes that it does. What I can tell you is there's no danger. Once again, as long as you're a normal, healthy individual, you'll eventually get used to it. It won't be a problem anymore. Excuse me.
Okay, great. A question from Adayaka. The Reddit forum on astral projection has a lot of folks expressing concerns about fear. What practices, rituals, or habits would you recommend or suggest for folks in regards to experiencing the unknown?
Knowledge. Knowledge and experience is the best way to fight fear. I mean, what is fear? Fear is fear of the unknown. It's an emotion, it's a reaction. And there's nothing wrong with fear. Fear is what helped our race stay alive. Okay, when we were hiding in those caves at night, we heard all those predators and all their growls and stuff. That fear kept us inside with a fire burning. It allowed us to continue to exist and not become extinct. It becomes a problem when it becomes something that's uncontrolled. And the best way I find to deal with fear is knowledge. Reading books like Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe, watching non-fear based videos, learning about what to expect. What's one of the things I do in my videos on Astro Club is just inform people what to expect. And all the little trials and errors that I made, they can learn from my mistakes. They don't have to make them. And so, when they see themselves outside of their body, they know it's a positive thing. They don't have to feel fear. And they know they've got to leave and they've got to, go into the sky and what have you. It's knowledge. Knowledge is the only thing. Because what is fear? Fear is ignorance. And it's that blind animal fear based on ignorance. Once you have the knowledge and the experience, the fear, I won't say it completely goes away because it never does. It's always going to be with us, but it's controlled. You have control of the fear. The fear doesn't have control of you. So educate yourself. Understand that others, including Rick, have done this thousands of times, and that the fear it's not real. It's not necessary, and it's not warranted. That's the best way to deal with it.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, a question from Snuts. If our goal is to get as many people to astral project as possible, then wouldn't it be worthwhile to carve out and learn the best methods? I feel like there's a lot we're missing as a community, considering there's a lot of methods out there, but we all have a low success rate. Maybe there are physical limitations revolving around pineal gland calcification or chakras, who knows? Would one be able to use Akashic records or other methods to obtain a very high success rate method?
I don't know, possibly. For me, it's just been a matter of just applying and practicing and getting experience and getting better and better at it throughout my life. So for me, it's just been a matter of just experience at getting better and better at it. Maybe the Akashic Records has got some sort of secret there. I don't know. For me, it's just been experience.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Kai.
I believe,
Yeah,
there was a young lady who was trying to ask a question, but she got cut off.
Oh, I answered her question before.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
That's fine. Yeah, so another question from Kai. Have you had any success on seeing if Monroe's Loosh farm theory is true since the making of the Are We Being Farmed video?
Yeah. That was, that was, I kicked around whether I should make that video, to be honest with you, because it's when I first read about that in Monroe's book, I could tell you it affected me for 6 months, just running that through my head. It's, I don't have, I mean, in my video that I put down what I had to contribute to that. And I think what it is, we as humans, we've got this arrogance that we're at the top of the food chain and that it's okay for everything else to give of itself to sustain us. But since we're at the top, we should never give anything else to anything else. The whole Loosh thing that Monroe discovered and what I was able to observe is that there is a substance that is excreted from living beings of all sorts, but especially animals and especially humans, and that this substance nourishes these advanced beings somewhere. I don't know anything about them or what have you. And what Monroe said is that they were gardeners of a sort, in that they had a hand in the development of our race. I don't know. That's what he said. I have no information on that. For me, like I said, it really threw me for a loop for about 6 months. I eventually made some peace with it. I kind of thought of, well, imagine a cow, and it's got milk. Now, the cow can't use the milk because it doesn't have any young, but it's got this milk that it continues to come out, and the farmer comes and takes it away. And in exchange for that milk, the farmer feeds the cow, takes care of the cow, gives it medical care and what have you. So the cow gets rid of the substance it doesn't need, and in return, it gets things it does. So is it a parasitic relationship or is it a symbiotic one? I don't know. And is that something that can be applied in a greater way to humans in this whole idea of Loosh? It's still something I kick around to this day. It's an explosive topic, and it's still sometimes something that I struggle with a little bit. But perhaps we need to realize that we as the human race aren't the pinnacle of evolution, that perhaps there are beings elsewhere who, in return for taking care of us on some level, we give them something. And remember what happens to cows when they stop giving milk. So, maybe the milk should continue to flow. I don't know. I stated what I knew and what I observed in that video that you just named. And you know what? It is what it is. If it does exist, it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it, because if these beings are as advanced as they seem to be, there's nothing we can do about it. The cow has no ability to stop the farmer, even if it wanted to. And if it could stop the farmer, then what would it do for pasturage and medical care and what have you, even if it could? So, it's just one of those weird things out there. Monroe was the one who discovered this, and it still kind of throws me for a loop every now and again. And all I can do is just offer my viewpoint based on it, and it's just it is what it is. I still have my doubts sometimes, but it's certainly a very compelling topic. Sure.
Thank you. Tofu, did you have a question?
Yeah. Can you hear me well?
Yeah,
I can hear you
fine.
Okay. So, how can I find someone, because one of my motivations to actually be is to meet a person, but I don't know if the person is even still alive or not. How is it possible to know that? To find?
Okay. So there's some person, maybe a friend or a relative, long lost, that's somewhere in the physical, you think,
Yeah.
and you're trying to locate. Are you an experienced astral projector?
No, not at all.
Oh, well, that's tough. Because an experienced astral projector, if you're very familiar with this person, they've got an energy signature. And that's the best English word I can come up with. There's a feeling associated with every person. Every person has an individual energy vibration. And when you're experienced with that person, when you're an experienced projector, it's possible to seek out that vibration in a sea of other vibrations and to home in on it. I did it myself a while back. There was an old girlfriend I had from junior high school. I mean, it was cute. We just dated a little bit, went to a couple of ball games. But I wanted to find her. So I thought about her, and I wish I could communicate telepathically. Sometimes my limited English skills can really drive me insane. But, I projected myself to find that vibration. And I got there. I saw the house. I even was able to come back with the address, which is great because sometimes numbers are very dyslexic in words. And I saw her. And when I came back, I was able to look up the address in the house. And it was to her under her married name. And I guess she's married with, what I guess she had some kids or whatever, but at some point. But so I was able to find her, but I'm an experienced astral projector. So if you're not an experienced projector, it's kind of like saying, why don't you just go into the Olympics? So you really want to try to get some experience projecting before you try to do something like that.
Yeah, but it's eventually possible. Like it's
I'm
okay.
sure I did it. It's just you really need to become experienced because there is
for meeting like dead souls.
Well, it's the same situation, although
Yeah.
it's a little bit different. See, the best time to contact someone who's passed, and it depends too, because if someone has passed suddenly or if they passed after a long illness, different things can happen. Generally, though, the best time to contact someone is within the first 30 days or so of the time they pass, because there's usually a period of time where they're saying goodbye, and they're the closest to the physical, and they're available, and unless they've gone through a long illness, in which case they might be recuperating on a recuperative plane.
It's already been over 30 days, so.
Oh, well, I mean, they're still around, probably. So if it's possible, now's the time. Are you? You're kind of in and out there. Are you saying that? Do I like YouTube astral projection things? Well, sure. I have Astral Club on YouTube. It's a channel on YouTube. We've got about 7,300 subscribers, and there's close to 100 videos there now that you can watch on a wide variety of astral projection topics, if that's what you're asking. Okay. Yeah, they're easy to find too. Look up Astral Club in YouTube, and you'll see all these yellow, bright yellow icons. So you can't miss it when you look up Astral Club.
Okay. Yep. So next question by Kai. You said earlier that you're not allowed to share certain information you acquire during projecting. Is the information just not easy for most people to handle, or is it dangerous if it goes into the wrong hands?
A little of both. No, there's very little of that. I mean, I don't want you to think I've got this huge amount of information. It was just it was information about the next 10 years. And it was something that I had asked, but it would interfere with free will in a major way. And that is a big no-no. And I was told that if I shared this, I would be banned from ever going back to the Akashic records. So, I've for once I actually listened and I obeyed. But I share, most everything that I observe. That's just one little piece of information that I didn't want to break that particular rule. Well, it's we've been on this for 2 hours now. Is there a question or two left, and then we'll wrap this up?
Yeah, does anyone want to ask? Or I will go through the text-to-voice questions. Let's just have a look. Okay, so a question from Sima. Do you think it would be easier to meet other projectors in the physical plane or the astral plane? Or do you recommend any plane? I think she means, is it easier to meet them on a plane like parallel to the physical rather than an astral one, if that makes sense?
Well, I mean, certainly it's easiest to meet him on the physical. But
Yeah.
In the astral, I think probably the easiest thing to do would be to meet them on the lowest astral level. That's where your average physical astral projector, especially the new ones, are at, because that's where you're at as soon as you leave your body. The problem with the lower astral is, it's easier to meet some other physical people there, but some of the areas of the lower astrals, like bad areas of big cities, you got a lot of undesirables running around, folks who are drug addicts or who are addicted to various things. And
hello, has anyone else cut out for a moment? Or is that just me?
well, you know what, guys, it's been a couple hours. I think you've heard me yakking long enough.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I want to thank you guys for inviting me. I've had a lot of fun. And, if you want to check out Astral Club on YouTube, check it out. We got close to 100 videos there now.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming again. I'm going to link everything in the text channels, including your Patreon, if anyone wants to support Astral Club.
Oh, okay, sure.
I do have one more quick question though. What's like
Okay.
the easiest
Go
way
on
to
ahead.
contact you?
What's that?
What's the easiest way to contact you?
Well, there's really only two ways. Right, is to leave a comment or a question on one of my videos or through Patreon. I'm very busy nowadays. I still have a full-time position as a director in a manufacturing facility, and at the same time, I get a lot of questions and comments.
Yeah, for sure.
So, it's if you want to leave a comment or a question on a video, I do my best to answer them. You'll see, I'm not like some of these people who just ignore it. I try to get everybody. So, if you go ahead and do that, I'll do my best to get you an answer.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Klex, you can astrally project to him and ask him. Don't do that. That's creepy.
Yeah, that's a little
you.
creepy.
Thank you very much.
That's what you call home invasion.
Okay,
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks a lot now. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
See you on the astral plane.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye.